Can you hear me? Yes.
This is just for wind guard, basically. All right, everybody. It is currently 6:31. I am going to be bringing the meeting of Economic Matters to order. First of all, let's do a roll call. Alderman Savidge, Alderwoman Finlayson, and myself are all here. I would like to welcome as our guest Alderwoman Elly Tierney. Up next is the approval of the agenda. I have emailed this out to my colleagues on the order of the agenda that we are going to be hearing today. First, we are going to be hearing the appointments, and then when it gets to the legislation, we are going in reverse order, with 03021 market space lease agreement being heard first, and then 01221 the Peace Act will be heard second. I do allow testimony before the committee. However, I will viciously enforce the 3-minute rule with a bang of the gavel and possibly a mic cutoff. Who knows? We'll have fun with it. So with that said in mind, do we need to adjust the amendment or the agenda at all in that way? All right, with that said, do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'll recommend approval of the agenda as amended.
All right.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, up first, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from 7/27/21?
Move approval of the minutes from July 27th.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Alrighty, first, AP 4021, the appointment of Todd Powell to the Heritage Commission. Is Mr. Powell here today? Mr. Powell? All right, Mr. Powell. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for joining us today. I'd like to thank you for your interest in the Heritage Commission. I always like to ask first off, what made you interested in applying for this position?
I attend the monthly meeting. I'm in Ward 3 with Alderwoman Pendell and the Greater Parole Community Association. And they put out a notice that they were in need of certain members from the community to participate on the board. And so I was tasked for that. And so I immediately reached out to begin the process.
All right. Do any of my colleagues have questions?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Powell, why this committee? Can you talk about your skill set that would make you a perfect candidate for this commission?
Sure. Well, background is I'm a real estate broker of 23 years and worked in the hospitality industry. But I love preserving the history of communities. That's one thing. So I'm into the arts and anything that can preserve the legacy of history that has passed with cities, with towns, with organizations. And so I'm a student of it in a sense of I try to engage and understand what has happened in the past and see if we can preserve it for the future generations to come.
Well, the parole community, which you would represent, well, you'd represent the whole city, but it has a tremendous historical legacy.
Yes, it does.
And so I think the skill set and interest that you bring would be an asset. Ward 1 is one of our historical districts, but Ward 3 surely is another one of our historical districts.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. As a matter of fact, I was at the ribbon cutting ceremony last Monday with Alderwoman and the mayor and all with the mural with the taxi cab drivers and the importance of it, right? So I'm bred, born, and raised in Anne Arundel County, mainly northern Anne Arundel County. But when I live here, my wife and I built a home down here a few years ago across from Germantown in that area on Pendell Avenue, Alderwoman's street address. But I typically when I see older, or not just older, but people from African-American descent, I'll ask them, are they an original Annapolitan? And the reason for that is because typically my older brothers and sisters or my parents or aunts and uncles all had to come down to Bates High School way back in the day. And so we've all connected in some kind of way. So I know them, and every time I talk to someone, sure, I'm an Annapolitan. The class of what? They're all going to know my family, and we're going to know their family very well. Like even Rhonda, her cousins, the Hines and the Queens, and we all connected and know one another because I'm from Pumphrey originally, just northern Anne Arundel County. So, but just the preservation of the history and the things that's happening.
Well, I am a native Annapolitan, and we welcome you, being from northern part of the county.
Thank you.
Anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Savidge?
Yeah, thank you for your interest in serving.
Yes, thank you.
Do you have any particular projects or initiatives that you'd like to bring to the commission at this time, or are you still
None currently, just
looking into it?
just learning. Typically what I'm trying to do right now is listen, and while I'm on a lot of calls, I did listen, and they meet every 3 months. I think the last time they met may have been July. And so when I really found out that there was a need for someone, I immediately went to the call they had on YouTube and listened to that and began to reach out to Chair, is it Toma? Yeah, Toma. And begin that dialogue and that. So as of right now, no, but just trying to listen, learn. And once I listen and learn, that I will begin to leverage my relationships and skill sets and launch whatever needs to be launched at that time. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Thank you for allowing me to say something. I am so excited because Alderwoman Pindle-Charles and I have talked about, the historic overlay, and I represent Ward 1 with the, infamous historic district, but parole has so many stories to tell, and one of the unsung spaces, sacred space at that, is the parole camps.
Yeah.
And where the Heritage Commission will come, it will be very vital, is more sort of signage. For example, there's this vacant space on Spa Road that might be potential development, and there's a thought, well, that could really be a green space dedicated to the parole camps, and there's a lot of good ideas out there where you'll have an instrumental part of. So welcome, and thank you very much for your interest and service.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. And I think we had a moment to chat at the end of the Alex Haley event last month. I chatted with you briefly, and we talked about some of the things that's happening even in your district with the unfortunate, a lot of investors that's coming in, and as opposed to with the whole Airbnb things, and the people that bought the Naval Academy campus and the little flower shop and all those good stuff. Yeah. So. Mm-hmm.
All right. Any further questions from my colleagues?
Mr. Chair, I'll recommend a favorable recommendation for Mr. Todd Powell to
Second.
the Historic Preservation Commission.
Sorry.
It has been moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to allow me to serve. Yes, appreciate it. Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, up next on the agenda, we have AP 4121, the appointment of Reed Bowman to the Heritage Commission. Is Mr. Bowman here?
Mr. Bowman could not attend this evening, but I'm happy to speak on his behalf.
I am okay with that myself. Could you give us just a little bit of background on Mr. Bowman?
Sure. Mr. Bowman was recommended by the chair, Ms. Toma, and he has his undergraduate is from Cornell, and it was in labor, but he included studies in labor history. I thought was an interesting background. He's very active in the community and is currently a tour guide both for the U.S. Naval Academy and Watermark, which does the historic tours downtown, I guess you all know, and also volunteered at Hammond Harwood. And he does live down here in Ward 1.
All right, colleagues, do you have any questions? Alderman Savidge?
Well, I'd prefer that, I'd be in favor of postponing this at least one meeting just to see if they would be able to attend in person. I think it's a good practice to be able to meet them personally or virtually these days, but at least to hear from them, gauge their interest and commitment to serving.
Do we have time this council to do that without a special committee meeting?
That's a good question.
So actually, I was going to talk to you about that anyway, because your next meeting actually comes after, I think it's literally the day after the final council meeting. So you would have to change your meeting date anyway, if you wanted to have one in October.
Okay. Colleagues, we willing to rearrange some schedules for October to get a special meeting in?
I think we're going to have to hear legislation, not necessarily a special meeting, but.
Well,
just-
I mean, technically it would be special,
Yeah.
just because it's not going to fall on your normal day. But like I said, your normal day falls the day after the very last council meeting.
All right.
So I would concur in postponing Mr. Bowman's appointment until he can join us.
Okay, so the postponement, Alderman Savidge, do you mind if we call that a motion to postpone?
Yes.
And
I'll
Alderman
second
Finlayson,
that.
call that a second. All right, all those in favor of postponing the appointment of Mr. Bowman until a special meeting where we can talk to him in person? Aye.
Hi.
Passes unanimously. All right, Mr. Bowman. And up next is AP 4221, the appointment of Kevin Smith to the Historic Preservation Commission. Mr. Smith, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in this position.
Yeah, I've lived or worked in Annapolis for about 12 years, and about a year and a half ago, my wife and I purchased a Sands house on Prince George Street that was in need of significant renovations to become a family home again. It had been vacant for about 5 years, and we went through the process, and it had extra requirements, not just from the Historic Preservation Commission, but from the state. There were easements on the interior and the exterior of the house, so we are fully versed in the Department of Interior guidelines for historic preservation, and I personally enjoy it. I mean, that's why we purchased the house. We love my wife and I love Annapolis. I thoroughly enjoy being downtown, and just personally enjoy walking around and seeing all the different houses and all the different time periods that they represent and all the different styles and history they represent. So I already walk around and look and see these properties, and then because I know that's an important part of the commission is to physically see these properties. And for about last 4 years, I've worked for a very large home builder, and my profession is in the finance industry, but I've become more acquainted with looking at plans and seeing what the plans are and what that means and how that what that results in real life and what the physical structure eventually looks like. And it's something I enjoy and I want to participate in.
Colleagues, any questions? Alderman Savidge?
Yeah, and thank you also for your interest in serving. You already, I think, answered one of my questions because it had to do with, this is one of the unique commissions we have where the members actually have to have a demonstrated interest, if not actual education or experience in the particular fields they list. So it sounds like you certainly do have the interest. And you said your current position I saw was, I saw most of your career sound like it was in finances, but your current career, you said, deals with building cost estimation. So do you deal with the historic aspect of that, and how do you envision that playing in with the role and duties of the Historic Preservation Commission?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my current job does not deal with historic homes at all. It's very much a large community home builder. As a company, we're building almost 20,000 homes this year across the country. But what I do get involved with is some examples of if a customer wants to change something in a house that isn't according to our normal plans, and I do get involved and work with our subject matter experts to figure out if it's an appropriate change, if it's something we can do, how much it's going to cost, what's the difficulty of that, if we're going to mess it up, if we're going to do it correctly the first time. So I feel like that experience will help when reviewing the submissions to see if the submissions make sense, if they're going to work the first time, or if they're not going to work as intended when you hand a submission or the blueprints to a worker, and how that's actually going to be constructed in real life. So, because I've seen that go well and I've seen it go poorly, and I prefer it to go well. So I try to intervene ahead of time instead of after the fact and having to redo work and all that.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like that could be a valuable experience to bring to the board in terms of, just analyzing the costs of various improvements. And can you talk more about your interest in the just in the mission of Historic Preservation Commission?
Yeah, for sure. Living downtown, I mean, I see every day how unique this area is, and people have worked a long time to keep it that way. It didn't just happen because, right? It's a very organic way that this happened, something that Jane Jacobs would approve of, and especially with the interest with the city dock. I mean, I live feet from city dock, so my elevation in my house is 7, so I'm very interested in the flood mitigation work that's you guys have been working very hard on. And so yeah, I really enjoy that, and seeing the opportunity for city dock when they were looking for input from the city about what to do in city dock. I felt very strongly that it's a very valuable resource, and that too much of it is devoted to asphalt and cars, and not to the people who live here and visit here and are working here. And if I can help push that forward to make it a more livable space, I really want to do that.
Well, thank you. And I'm sure that just got you the chair's vote. But,
You had me quoting Jane Jacobs.
that's all I have. Thank you.
Alderman Finlayson?
Yeah, I guess my question kind of overlaps what Alderman Savidge was getting to. You live in the historic district, and you've renovated a house in the district. Are you already beginning to think about recommendations that would make our procedures more easily attainable, I'll say?
Yes, I've had plenty of opportunity to think about that. It took us about 12 to 15 months to get the permits to do the work we had to do. So you can imagine I had plenty of time in that time frame to think about how the procedures could have gone in a more expedited fashion. We had to deal with both the state, Maryland Historic Trust, and the Historic Preservation Commission. The Historic Preservation Commission would not look at anything that we had until we had a full 100% full complete approval from the Maryland Historic Trust, as they had an easement on the home. And so we felt like it wasn't a process that supported those who were trying to do it the right way, because we were getting 8 to 12 to 18 week lead times from the state. And then we had 6 to 12 week lead times with Historic Preservation Commission to get things approved in order to be on the docket to be approved at the actual commission meeting. And at times that felt very frustrating, and it felt like it was disincentivizing those who are trying to do it the right way. We've got to work with John Tower quite a bit. So I realized my experience is a little different because we had to wait on the state agency to do their part, and they're overloaded as everyone is. So it was a little bit different than everyone else's, but I do want to incentivize those who want to do it the right way to do it the right way, and to come through the commission and get things approved rather than do work unpermitted and then ask for forgiveness later on. I mean, I don't want that to be the incentive that our residents have. So yes, I have had a lot of time to think about that, and I want to be helpful and help people get to the finish line and do it, because those are the people who are trying to do it the right way, not subvert the process and then ask for forgiveness later.
Well, I would hope that your practical experience would be valued by the commission. So, Mr. Chair, I would be prepared to make a motion if you'd like.
Before we do so, Alderwoman Tierney, do you have any questions or comments from Mr. Smith?
I just think it's excellent that he has that practical application, and I'm sitting here and the Sands house, is that where I mean, I know the house and the story is, the story of it, strange bedfellows, did that come from there? Is that a myth? I went on a ghost tour once and there was this.
My wife would know more about that.
No, wasn't, do you know what I'm talking about? With it, everybody was sleeping on cots back then and it was, no, okay.
I mean, it was used as a tavern and an inn for
Yeah.
the American Revolution.
Right.
But
And-
I don't know anything about
Oh, okay. You know, on ghost tours, they sort of stretch the truth. There's something about the strange bedfellows originated from there because you'd go to this tavern, you wouldn't know who was sleeping next to you. But so I digress. But congratulations. It's going to be great to have you on that commission.
Thank you.
All right, Alderman Finlayson, can I have a motion, please?
Yes, I'll make a motion to give a favorable recommendation to Mr. Kevin Smith to the Historic Preservation Commission.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
Alrighty, up next, we're going to have...
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
Just state for those who came, your appointment will still go to the entire city council.
Yeah, sorry, I'm being too positive. It'd be fine.
I mean,
Yeah.
if it's a favorable report, it's...
Yeah, it's
But,
nothing to worry about, but thank you.
but congratulations, and again, you had me quoting Jane Jacobs, so... All right, everyone. Up next, we are going to go to legislation before the committee. We're going to start with 03021, the market space lease agreements. I understand we have some of the restaurateurs who are going to be signing the lease coming before us, or hoping to sign the lease. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
If you could please, we will be limiting your testimony to 3 minutes. It will be aggressively enforced. And start off the record by reading your name and address before the committee.
Jeremy Black, 408 Army Drive, Grayson, Maryland.
Can you turn your microphone on, please, sir?
Oh, there we go. Jeremy Black, I live at 408 Narnia Drive in Graysonville, Maryland, and I am one of the partners at Federal House Bar and Grill.
Kevin Havens, 359 Preston Field Lane in Severna Park, and I'm one of the owners of McGarvey's.
So, yes, I'm happy to. I'm long-winded. 3 minutes is going to be tough. In the interests of keeping it short, I believe all of you are familiar with the legislation and the lease agreement that's proposed. Really, all I want to do is touch on two things. The rest of it I really touched on at City Council, and I believe everyone has talked about it at length. The first one I want to touch on is the economic issue, the economic portion of it. The lease is a nice shot in the arm for the city itself as it generates additional income to be utilized at the council's discretion for other programs within the city. Additional income than does the parking areas itself. And then for us, the second big thing is we really feel like that this is a response to an overwhelming desire for the guest that visits our city to dine outside. That's really the big component here. I have been through town the last couple of weekends, and there is a vibrance and an energy that hasn't existed in town for a while, even on our busy days. We feel like that this is truly what the guest would like, and we feel like that our area in front of Market Space is a great place to get this started.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
We'll set the clock. Would you like to testify as well, sir?
I really don't have much to add over what Jeremy's saying. I do just want to say that us as restaurant owners, we really want this to be a collaborative effort with everybody involved, not just, with City Council, with Historic Annapolis, John Tower, HPC. We understand that this is, yes, it is good for us, but it's also good for the city. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we're more than willing to to work with all the parties involved in this. That's it.
Thank you. All right, colleagues, if you don't mind, I'm going to take chair's privilege and ask the first question. A few of the retailers have been saying that without parking directly in front of their store, people are unwilling to walk 100 feet to get to it. Could you touch on, have any of the retailers commented to you about the increase in foot traffic benefiting their businesses as well?
So I'll take that one, Kevin, if that's okay. I have spoken to a few of the retailers, and I'm one of those folks that understands that even when there was parking out in front of my store, that very few, if any, of my guests were parked directly out in front of Federal House Bar and Grill in order to come in there. You know, the city is a destination, and we rely on walking traffic and volume for success. So, an area like we're proposing, we're hoping is a big draw to the general public and creates that volume that we all need to succeed. In addition to that, the few retailers, Fat Face comes to mind right off the top of my head. Ale Goodies comes to my head that I've spoken to that have really indicated that they've seen an increase in traffic within their stores due to the outdoor dining. They feel like due to the outdoor dining. They feel like that those folks, rather than staring at the interior walls of the place that they're having food, that they are actively looking around for what they are going to do next. What store looks great? What sweatshirt they want to buy on their way out? And that's, for me, that's the best response that I could have asked for when you talk to one of those retailers.
Thank you. Any of my colleagues have questions for our panelists here? Alderwoman Finlayson?
Yes, thank you. Has there been a polling of the residents who live on Pinckney, Fleet Street, and Cornhill Street? Have you gotten any reaction from the residents?
I can speak to the residents on Pinckney. Obviously I share a street with them. Mm-hmm. There seems to be a captain of Pinckney over there, Miss Claire, and she has voiced to me on numerous occasions that they thoroughly enjoy the fact that we intend to keep that street at least partially closed, traffic being one major concern for her and her residents. They also love the idea of the close proximity to all the amenities that we will be offering down in market space for them as well.
I'm afraid I'm having trouble understanding. Can you take your mask off?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
Thank you.
I have spoken to the residents on Pinckney. They're in favor. I've had no objections from any of them. We've held multiple festivals over the past years, especially in the past year and a half with everything that's been going on downtown. They understand. I think they don't necessarily like the tent layout down there, but I think we're all in agreement that that's not going to stay. But moving forward, they do like the idea of having a lot of amenities very close to them and opportunities for outdoor dining, festivals, just a lot of the things that we want to incorporate into this space. And I have not heard any negative feedback from any of them. That's just the Pinckney. I haven't spoken to anybody on Fleet and Cornhill.
Well, that's
is it okay if I add to that?
Please, yeah.
Just to add to that, obviously Kevin shares Pinckney Street. I share, the bottom of Fleet and Cornhill. Over the last year or so since the expanded outdoor dining, we've spoken to multiple residents, and the thing that hit home for me the most was I had some residents indicate to me that they now feel like they have a wonderful reason to walk downtown during town's busiest season. They said normally they avoid going into town. Traffic's difficult. There was no major draw to come down. They live there. They see it all day, every day. So we avoid it when we have trouble parking or when we know the restaurants are going to be full or the stores are going to be full. And some of the feedback I've gotten is that they are, as residents, finding themselves in downtown more often as residents than they were in the past.
Well, that's good to hear. Ms. Leonard, do you have any... Sorry, you don't have a mic. Absolutely. Are there any anomalies in any of these individual leases?
They're all the same lease other than rent. Rent is, and the leased premises. So those are divvied up on the exhibit, and then rent is divided out based on how much space they have. So that's the only difference between all the leases. And the leases is based on the standard leases I do for a lot of these types of things. So a lot of our standard protections and provisions and things of that nature are all in here like they are for many of our leases. So,
Okay, thank you.
and done.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Savidge, do you have any questions for our panel? Alderman Tierney.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming down to testify.
I just want to add that, that every department, well, every planning and zoning, Office of Emergency Management, the fire department, the police department, DPW, I'm not sure if I missed anybody, but we've had a couple of sessions down there just to make sure that everything is safe and accessible. Bud Zapata, did measurement as far as fire hose, and just want to make sure that that was a real priority. And Alderman Finlayson, that's an excellent question. The Picnic Street residents are happy because now they can have happy hour on their porches, and they don't have to worry about the St. Mary's kids zipping up the street. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's 100%, maybe 99% embrace it, and that's because it's reflective of what they offer. It's acoustic music. It's just very celebratory and opening, even with the tents. But yes, people are tiring of the tents and they're looking forward to this. But I was really looking forward to what you all had to say. So thank you, and thank you for coming.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. Colleagues, do we want to debate this legislation further, or are we ready for a favorable or unfavorable recommendation?
Mr. Chair, I do have another question. Alderwoman Tierney raised the issue, or mentioned the fact that there's music. In the past, the restaurant, the Market House, had attempted to have some music, you may recall, on Sunday evenings or Saturday evenings. And there was a considerable amount of consternation in opposition to having music down there. Are you meeting with any resistance of any sort now?
Not to this point. I think we're right now being overpowered by the gentleman at the corner of Main and Market Space. That one seems to be getting more of the attention than ours is. Again, ours is quiet, respectful, and it also starts later and ends earlier. I think we've been doing noon to 6 p.m. or 1 to 7 p.m., somewhere in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I cannot hear it at the back end of my building when I walk out the side of Fleet and Cornhill. I can't hear what's going on out there. So as soon as I get to the opposite side of the Market House, walking to my car, I can no longer hear that music. So it's really just meant for the intimate setting of Market Space itself. With that said, should there be any guidelines, rules, regulations with respect to noise and music that we needed to follow that are either currently in place or become in place due to this situation, we are on board to follow them all.
Well, I'm glad to hear that there hasn't been any opposition, because I thought it was a wonderful addition to downtown when it did occur. And I mean, that was previous administration that saw fit to eliminate it, but I'm glad you're bringing it back, so thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chair, I will make a recommendation that we give a favorable recommendation to 03021.
Do I have a second?
I'll second what I would like to say a few things to.
Absolutely.
And I guess I have questions for Alderwoman Tierney, because this is obviously all in her ward. So you don't have any concerns with this?
Well, to Alderwoman Finlayson's point, the lease does reference, the requirements that, that they have to adhere to the decibel level and all of that. And there were some concerns brought up by residents about the advertisements, that you see down there and that kind of stuff. So that's in the lease as well. And we worked with Ashley to make sure that it's all in the lease. I think that we want to make sure that that the purpose is is not, just dining, as it says in attachment C. They have been, with the lease allows them to have uses such as festivals and markets and event watch parties and movie nights and stuff like that. So I hope that is part of it, and because it is public space, right, for everyone. So, and so it's in the lease. So hopefully that's all good. So thanks for asking.
I mean, does it address any of the aesthetic issues
Any of the what issues?
the aesthetic issues that we've had with some of the properties? Not necessarily, I'm just saying generally with some, I think we know one particular property. Like you mentioned the advertisements and things like that, which went a bit overboard with some of the properties.
I don't know if there's aesthetic language, Ashley, that
There is. So there's
on the site furnishings maybe? Or?
there is. We talk about well, there's a specific section on signs. Sorry, it's been a long day. Where is it? I know we have it in here. No, I can't see it. All right. So we address like the decorations and the furnishings in paragraph 2H, and we include that all such decorations and furnishings shall be approved by the city's chief of historic preservation prior to use on site.
Where does it say that?
That's in paragraph, so it's page 3.
Yep.
Lines 29 to 39. I happen to be looking at federal houses.
Yep, I got it. The tenant.
So 2H. And then we have things like the fire lane is addressed, which is different, but that's in 2D. We have hours for use, like so that they have to sort of put things away neatly, and that's in 2I. Well, I'm trying to think. And I know we had a sign section, but now I'm blanking on it. Signs, sorry. Signs is page 6 to page 7. It starts the very last line of page 6, which is why I didn't see it, and it gives the city oversight into signs, billboards, marquees, decorations, placards, advertising, or any other similar thing. So we do have a good bit of oversight to that sort of stuff.
Good. And how long would this allow them to have the outdoor dining?
So the term of the lease is a quirky one. It starts on, so the effective date is the start date is the date following 30 calendar days after the expiration or termination of the state's state of emergency. And then provided they're not in default and they continue to occupy it, they can do successive 1-year renewal terms all the way through to it expires on a defined term called the start of the city dock project, which is defined as that date which construction of the revitalization work at market space begins, and we have to give them notice in advance of what that date's going to be. So that's the term is about after the state of emergency ends to about when work starts down on city dock. Mm-hmm. But we do have the caveat that if there's defaults, obviously, we can.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. And yeah, just in general, I really like this idea. I think that I actually would like to see these extended throughout the city. Because I really do think, especially downtown, and sorry if I'm overstepping, but I just went to Stanton, Virginia this past weekend, and their whole Main Street was shut down all weekend. They had some bollards up, outdoor dining, and a lot going on in the street. It just made it more livable and enjoyable, and we ended up doing more shopping because we felt safer down there, not having to worry about the cars. Honestly, we were walking all over and participating in the activities, and it's interesting with the dining. It's certainly, I think we see it here too often, but down there it was, you'd have a lot of people outside. In some cases, nobody wanting to sit inside at all, and it's certainly a draw. And I'd love to see that kind of extended in other areas. But in any case, that's just generally very supportive of this.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to add, there's probably a reason why Fat Face made that comment, because they're based in Burlington, Vermont, and their store in Burlington, Vermont is on a closed pedestrian mall where there's outside dining and everything like that. So I'm not surprised that they, embrace the thought that it brings shoppers and all that. So, and the other thing that Jeremy and Kevin told me is that people are choosing to eat outside when there's an option to eat inside. You'll walk around and you don't see many people inside. And it could be COVID related, that just sort of that will stay with us, So.
Yeah. The only comment I guess I'll have is that the final comment would be just with the tents. I understand they're helpful to have up, but I think it can tend to block the overall viewscape if they get out of control and are done the wrong way.
Is it okay if I respond to that?
Certainly.
Yeah, as Kevin said earlier, we are, as the 5 stores located down there, we cannot wait to get those out. We understand that it's been a necessity. We're unbelievably thankful to the city for allowing those things to happen, because it truly is a large chunk of the reason we survived and that we're still here sitting at this table to be able to testify to this. But we're looking forward to those leaving as well. Our ultimate goal is to have it be a page 2 of the city pamphlet. It's not. Yes, we're going to benefit from it. At some point, but really, we're city first in this area. We would like to create additional traffic to come downtown, because it is better to have 1,000 people in town than to fight over the 100 people that are in town. So the more folks we can bring in and as vibrant as we can make it, that our businesses will all thrive due to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so a motion for favorable recommendation has been made and seconded. All those in favor for a favorable recommendation for O3021? Aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
All right, up next on the agenda is O1221, the Police Enhancement and Community Engagement Act. Alderman Savidge, this is legislation that you have been really working hard and prioritizing on, and going through the information as to why this ended up in front of Economic Matters. The big thing I found and that you found was pawn shop regulations. As the rest of this, I think, is more relevant to things like rules in public safety. I would like to keep the focus and discussion on this to the pawn shop regulations, if my colleagues are okay with that. Alderman Finlayson, do you have any comments on that? Or
Well, would you point out which language you're talking about? What page?
I can summarize.
Alderman Savidge?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So originally the legislation was proposing to change the language. So there's currently language in our code. It's currently in there in 2 places that required pawn shops to keep data on guns sold, except that they excluded shotguns for some reason.
They excluded what?
Shotguns. So it required that they keep track of the information with guns sold, and I can't remember, I don't think it was ammunition, it was just guns, and then they had to make that available to the police department. And so originally, the proposal was to kind of adjust that to say, to include shotguns, but also I think it was to include ammunition. But when we sat down with the police department, with Ms. McCoy, they basically said they didn't see any benefit to the modification or to the original, to what's actually in the code now. And so in the amended version, which I think has been uploaded and which I sent before the work session, it actually proposes to remove the pawn shop language from our code, because again, the police said it doesn't serve them any purpose or benefit. So I said, okay, we'll just remove it. So that's the background on that.
I thought pawn shops were regulated for firearm purposes federally. Are they not?
I think, and maybe Alderwoman Tierney might remember some of this conversation, but I think they did mention they had other oversight provided. Yeah, but they didn't recall ever actually utilizing this provision in the code either.
Okay, I'm not objecting to it, but
Yeah.
I just thought that was not, that's already covered under federal something firearms, and you know what I'm talking about. But your interest is in eliminating on page 18 and 19 the entire section that speaks to business licenses, taxes, and regulations, pawnbrokers.
Yes. So, yeah. So what I guess I would put out there as a suggestion, perhaps as a motion, would be that the committee recommend favorably to the amended language regarding pawn shops.
So the vote
which would be, yeah.
The vote would only be upon pawn shop regulations provision in the bill, not the bill itself, because a lot of the bill is outside of the economic matters purview.
Correct.
Is that the correct interpretation?
Correct.
So I guess I'm confused. I'm looking at the language. It's in red because why is it in red? And then why is it strike through in red? Is red because it's new language that was originally added to the legislation, and then now it has a strike through?
Can I look over?
Sure.
Yes, so that was originally in the legislation as introduced, but
Okay, so
so that was originally, it was in the original legislation as introduced. So the red slash is what is in the new proposed amended version.
Okay, so your amendment is to strike page 18, line 40 through, pages 18 and 19, lines 40 through 46, and then on 19, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I'm not sure the lines will line up to what was introduced, but I guess we could say that section. What's the section header?
Okay, there's two sections.
Title 7, which begins on page 18.
Yeah, that's line 40.
And then Title 7 going down to Section 1 and Section 2.
Well, I think traditionally we usually use the line numbers in the page. Do we not?
The only problem with that is that this is the red line version, and it's not the original first reader version. So that's why Alderman Savidge said it probably wouldn't match up.
Okay.
So if we refer to the section header, that might be better.
Okay, so we're talking Title 7, Section 7.36, 7.36070, 7.36078, and
11.44.
Title 11,
Yeah.
11.44, and 11.44030.
5.78, right?
Okay.
This might be easier if we asked Takia to take a quick look at what we're referencing specifically while we stumble our way through the reading of this. Is that okay with you? Everything from Title 7 down.
Well, Title 7 and Title 11.
Yes, but Title 7 down in the red portion, just for her lining up in the minutes.
I guess what is confusing me in part is the red. Because normally if you're creating new language, it's capitalized. So here we have some capitalized, some not capitalized, some red, some strike throughs.
So that's because when it was introduced, it had new language, but it included the entire section. And so the lowercase in red that you see is the existing language in our code. And so the amendment would just strike that in addition to what was originally proposed to be added.
So why is it in red? Or you just like red?
No, in this case, it would be, I think it'd be red because, let me see.
It's all in red, which I just want us to,
Is it just the Microsoft Word redlining?
It's a red line version. Yeah.
It's just, it has track changes on it as Word document.
okay, but normally we wouldn't get that in Munis, would we? Get the red line?
That's because there were so many changes based on our conversations with the police,
Okay.
and that there's an entirely new version. Instead of having hundreds of amendments, it's just one new red line, kind of like what Alderman Arnett did with the transportation traffic, if you remember that one. I know that was also confusing, unfortunately.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'm good with the amendment. I'd like for us to be consistent when we're making these changes, so that everybody can follow it. If we're having trouble, you can imagine.
Yeah.
So, okay. So was that your motion to eliminate all of Title 17, Title 7, I'm sorry.
Takia, having...
And Title 11?
Yes.
Takia, is that how it would be phrased in an official motion?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. So the motion would be for a favorable recommendation on that specific part regarding the pawn shop regulations. Alderman Savidge, you had made a motion for a favorable recommendation. Do I have a second?
Well, I'd like to hear the motion.
I was going to say, you have to vote on the motion first.
I apologize. We have to vote on the motion or make the motion?
A second.
There's a motion on the floor to eliminate, and so we need a second and then a vote.
Okay.
I'll
So the
be willing to
motion-
second it, but I need to hear the motion.
The motion would be a favorable recommendation for the proposed changes, the proposed amendments in, I have to look to see if this even has a name. So be recommend favorably the proposed changes in regarding Title 17, Chapter 7.36, pawnbrokers, which would be striking that entire section from
So the motion
the
would be
ordinance.
to support striking section Title 7 and Title 11.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So motion for the striking has been made. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, I guess, do we do a motion for favorable or unfavorable recommendation on that front? What is our course of action? I've never
That's
gotten
it.
into a committee for just a partial
Yeah, that's
portions
huge.
recommendation on legislation. Do we do no action after that? Or
So
what?
that's what I was going to suggest. Just it's return without recommendation.
Okay. And that gets it through the committee hearing, will not be held in the committee hearing as possible?
Right.
Would
Okay.
you repeat that?
It would be a return without recommendation. So it will go forward from this committee without a recommendation.
But we just
Besides-
made one recommendation
Right.
for
So
an
you have
amendment.
that recommendation, but for the entire legislation, you're going to return it without recommendation.
Okay. I just want to make sure that the motion, the recommendation for the amendment is included, even though a recommendation on the legislation overall is not.
Right. So that will reflect.
Okay.
Okay. So I will go ahead and make the motion for outside of the amendments that we have done here or the recommendation from our committee on this one specific portion. We do a motion for no recommendation on the legislation as a whole.
Point of order, I don't think we need to make any kind of motion, right, Ms. Green?
I'm sorry, can you say that?
If we're taking no action, we don't need to do anything, right? It's just
We don't need
moves
to vote
forward.
on that?
Correct.
Okay. Cool. So with the exception of the one recommendation we have made for this piece of legislation, the committee will not be recommending favorably or unfavorably on the recommendation as a whole. And it is through our committee. All right, colleagues, anything else for the point of the, for the good of the order? I will be giving our new date.
Yeah.
For our new special meeting, please mark your calendar. It is going to be October 19th at 6:30 p.m.
I sent you guys an email earlier. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it.
Not yet, but that's fine. I believe you.
Maritime Advisory Board is meeting on the 19th. They don't meet here?
No, they're still virtual, and I checked with
okay.
the TV crew.
Okay.
Okay.
So what time?
6:30?
Okay. Ms. Green, you'll put that on our calendars?
What date?
Yes, ma'am.
19th.
October 19th.
October 19th. That is a Tuesday.
It's fine to me.
A wonderful one at that.
What are we hearing on that date? Just any appointments and any other legislation we have? That's before the last meeting?
Right.
Okay.
The last meeting is the 25th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any legislation beyond the one appointment AP 4121 that we'll be seeing?
I'm not sure yet.
Okay. All right. Well, it could be a short meeting. Could be a long one.
I wonder if we'll be getting the zoning officer legislation.
I have to check if it was recommended to this committee, but that did, the public hearing did close, so now it's going to committee.
Yeah.
Okay. So keep an eye on that. I think that's the only thing that could end up in front of us from what I can see. All right. So mark your calendars for October 19th. Anything else for the good of the order? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So have we?